So, and again, that's something that you could really just go on and on and on about, but I have some other stuff I really want to get onto today, but definitely we'll talk more about that kind of stuff in future podcast episodes and on LinkedIn and stuff like that. But the next point to get to is talking about protecting against clickbait slash ragebait. Clickbait and ragebait is, it feels like it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. Ragebait is, well, it's all the rage these days. And you see it in non-political contexts, like sports and video games and food as well. I mean, you look on, I think sports is particularly bad about that, was stuff like First Take, where, you know, not only is it trying to be loud and obnoxious opinions, but it's also trying to be first. We have to be first to have a take, which actually makes these takes more obnoxious and louder, so that you just try to drown out everybody else and not have a real conversation. And unfortunately, it's what a lot of people want. And so that's why the hot take machine in sports and politics and everywhere else is so lucrative, really. It gets a lot of money. Speaking of which, how do we define clickbait and ragebait? Because it's kind of one of those things that we kind of have a general view of what it is, but it's a little bit harder to really pin down the exact definition, because clickbait goes out of its way to manipulate you into clicking a story. But every story needs to bring people in to read and listen to it. And there's just so many outlets competing for our attention that they have to sometimes find some way to try to get you to pay attention to them. So we need to be more clear about what clickbait actually is. There's nothing necessarily wrong with stories trying to, or outlets trying to change like headlines and stuff to try to get you to pay attention. But there is, that only goes so far. Can only, the understanding of, okay, I see why they worded a headline like this, that can only go so far. We have to have some sort of safeguards against that kind of thing. So clickbait can be best described as sensationalized and or misleading headlines that pique your emotions. Again, that's a lot easier to define than, picking out specific examples, because some people, again, based on their biases, might find a headline misleading when it's not actually misleading. But that's try to at least find some sort of starting point for this. But clickbait really tries to use your psychology to its advantage. For example, focusing on conflict over cooperation. We're hardwired to pay attention more to conflict versus cooperation. And then, of course, you have the ethical questions about clickbait. Is it really about the actual news and about informing people, or is it really just trying to rile you up? And ragebait in particular is a type of clickbait, and it's more specifically meant to get an angry reaction out of you. It's deliberately insightful content, as in it incites you, not insightful like, oh, this has something interesting. No, it's just trying to make you mad, trying to make you pissed. Uh, it activates our negative biases towards individuals and groups that we are likely to be mad at, especially when it comes to polarizing figures. Whether, I mean, one of the most obvious ones, whether you like him or not, but really presidents inherently are polarizing figures, some more than others, but Donald Trump, and I'm not saying that Donald Trump is a good or bad or so president. That's for all of you to decide. But whenever you find some sort of insightful content regarding him, whether it's for him or against him, you see a ton of ragebait articles about that. And ragebait's not necessarily trying to get you eh, to get mad at somebody. It might actually just be trying to get you to share it with somebody, even if you don't like it. But examples of clickbait, uh, these are particular pet peeves of mine. You see a lot of articles and video titles that say somebody, this person got owned. They got smoked in this country. And a lot of times it's like, no, somebody just disagreed with them sharply. Maybe maybe they lost the debate, but owned. Shut up. That's no. Other ones, this person said thing A, person B's so and so's response is perfect. Oh yeah, is it perfect, or is it just, or do you just really agree with their response? You know, those things are kind of obvious, but people still click on them. Or my personal favorite, and by favorite I mean maybe the most annoying one, is when only specific words are capitalized. This person has a hilarious story about something. This person did something so terrible. It's just stop capitalizing random words in the titles of articles and videos. Unfortunately, that's not going to stop, but those are some ways that we see clickbait. Taking words deliberately out of context to get an emotional reaction from you, even if the overall quote was more mild or at least explanatory. And having a little bit of trouble off the top of my head thinking of a specific example of that. But, when you see short snippets of somebody's quote, especially if you see uh, a um, a short clip on the news, because the news is trying to pack a whole bunch of content in. People have really short attention spans. They want to get everything in there, so they really only play little bits a lot of times of somebody's greater quotes, or they're deliberately doing it just to get a rise out of you. You see that a lot. Blatantly subjective descriptions of objective events, uh, politically charged labels. I see a lot of ones that I see in particular is a lot of times conservative outlets like to use the term socialist, liberal outlets like to use the term fascist, and maybe in some cases those are apt descriptions, but a lot of times those are just used in a sense or in a way to demonize people. And then you see like actual in campaigns when somebody is they're a warrior for these values. That's also very obnoxious too. But you see a lot of those kinds of really subjective descriptions of people to make them seem like they're the greatest things in sliced bread, or they're basically worse than the plague. But the end game of clickbait is obviously to get you to engage and to share. And you don't have to like the content. A lot of times, actually, if you hate the content, you can actually be more effective at sharing it. Because even if you hate the content, you clicking on it to get mad at the outlet making the content or the person who's sharing the content, that's just driving engagement up, and internet algorithms are just going to circulate it further and further. So sharing the content to say, look how bad or stupid or terrible this thing is. Can you believe this? What a bunch of BS. It's serving its purpose. It's trying to get you to react to it, and so it's going to generate more views, going to generate more clicks. So some tips for protecting against clickbait and ragebait. Generally speaking, just don't engage with it. Now, obviously, that's a lot easier said than done. It's not always feasible to do that. And there are some exceptions where, okay, even if it's clickbaity, you should at least pay attention to it. But just as a general rule of thumb, if you know it's being clickbaity, you can probably find somewhere else that's talking about that information that is not being so clickbaity. If you feel a knee-jerk reaction of anger to something, really a knee-jerk reaction at all, but especially of anger to something you see on the internet, take a moment before responding to something. I know, hey, I'll tell you, when I was younger, I was very reactionary to a lot of things I saw on the internet, made stupid social media posts about it. Usually better about not reacting to that stuff now. But every once in a while, I still feel like how the hell could they say that? Or I can't stand what they said. Is that really helping to actually engage with it and say how wrong it is? Probably not. So I try to be a little bit more even tempered with that, certainly publicly. Uh, some articles and videos and so on, though, are going to be so painfully obvious in how clickbaited they are that you should just not engage with them at all. If you see something that says this person was owned or this person's response to another person was perfect, I'm going to tell you right now that is a completely worthless story, you don't need to engage with it. And if it's rage bait at all, if it's purposely trying to get a rise out of you, do not engage with it at all. That just circulates it further and further. And it's still serving its purpose, because a lot of these people are not really trying to inform you. They're just trying to get a rise out of you. They're trying to exploit a knowledge gap. You didn't know that this terrible thing was happening, so they're going to try to make you get all upset about it. And then it primes you further for when another story comes out about that, especially from that outlet. And if an outlet is regularly churning out clickbait, there are some sites that just that's just all they do. And it's not, and some clickbait can at least be like somewhat quality, but there are also sites that are just nothing they put out is quality. And if they're just putting out lazy clickbait all the time, you might just want to completely disregard them in the future. The big thing is media outlets are not going to change their tactics because we respond to them, and we respond to them in a way that helps their business model. They wouldn't be doing this kind of stuff if the market wasn't basically telling them this is the kind of stuff we want. We may say we hate negativity. We may say we want better news coverage. We may want more quality content, but a lot of times our actions dictate otherwise. And it can happen to any one of us. Some people are worse about it than others, but any one of us can be, if we're not careful, we can get got, as some people would say, by clickbait and ragebait. So doing all these things is going to protect us from people trying to exploit our knowledge gaps, because it's not letting exploiters use some of their most effective tools to manipulate the public. That is to say, clickbait and ragebait.